Okay, here's a huge question, one we've been asking for, well, forever. At our very core, are we peaceful collaborators or are we violent competitors? It's a massive debate, and today we're going to dive right in and unpack the evidence on both sides. You know, philosophers and scientists have been arguing about this for centuries, and it's easy to see why. On one hand, you see these incredible acts of kindness, people sacrificing for total strangers. But then you open a history book and it's just filled with brutality. So what's the real story? Where does the truth actually lie about who we are? All right, let's start with the first side of the argument, the idea that fundamentally we're peaceful beings. This whole perspective suggests that our factory default setting isn't conflict, it's cooperation.
So the evidence for this peaceful nature really comes from three big areas. First up, evolution. I mean, think about it. Our ancestors wouldn't have made it very long without serious teamwork. Then you look at anthropology, and studies of many small-scale societies show they actually prioritize talking things out over fighting. And finally, psychology tells us we seem to be born with this built-in moral compass for things like fairness.
And this is where it gets really interesting. This isn't just about stuff we learn as we grow up. Things like empathy, our tendency to return favors, being altruistic. All the signs point to this behavior being literally, biologically ingrained in us. They were basically ancient survival tools that helped our entire species get ahead.
That's a pretty compelling case, right? But it brings up a really obvious and kind of tough question. If we are so naturally cooperative, then why is our history absolutely jam-packed with war, conquest, and just unimaginable cruelty? The whole peaceful core idea doesn't seem to cover everything, does it?
And this right here, this highlights the central problem. It really seems like we're not just one thing. At the same exact time, we have this capacity for empathy and fairness. We're also carrying around these other instincts for aggression, for tribalism, for dominance, and for fear.
So let's totally switch gears now. Let's look at the other side of the argument and see how this case builds. The case that violence is also a fundamental, core part of who we are.
And just like the argument for peace, this one is also built on three main pillars. First, you just can't deny the historical record. Organized violence is a constant theme throughout human history. Second, if you look at it through an evolutionary lens, well, aggression had its perks. It helped protect your territory and secure mates. And finally, psychologically, we have this well-documented tendency to favor our in-group and be suspicious of outsiders, which, as you can imagine, is a recipe for conflict.
Just let that number sink in. Over 10,000 years. That's how long we have records of organized warfare. This is not a new problem for us. It is a deep, recurring pattern that runs through all of our civilizations.
So we're left with this massive contradiction. The evidence that we're naturally peaceful and cooperative is really, really strong. But so is the evidence for our capacity for aggression and violence. So which one is it? Which one really defines us?
Well, the modern scientific view actually offers a way out of this puzzle. It suggests that, hey, maybe we're asking the wrong question altogether. Maybe it's not about which trait we have, but which trait gets switched on. And the answer, it turns out, is that context is everything.
And when you look at it this way, the patterns are crystal clear. When people feel secure, when there's plenty to go around, when systems are fair, cooperation thrives. But you introduce scarcity, inequality, fear, or social pressure, and suddenly our more aggressive side gets triggered.
So, here's the crucial idea. We have a dual nature. We aren't one or the other. We are both, all the time. Think of it like this. We have the software for peace and the software for war pre-installed in our brains. The society and the environment we live in, that's the operating system that decides which program gets to run.
Okay, so what's the big takeaway from all this? This modern understanding gives us a more complicated, sure, but also a much more powerful way of looking at ourselves.
See, it's never just one thing that shapes our behavior. It's this whole cocktail of factors. It's the pressure from our environment. Is there scarcity? It's our cultural values. It's the fairness of our laws and institutions. And of course, how we're educated plays a huge, huge role in which side of our nature, the cooperative or the aggressive, comes to the surface.
You can actually boil it down to a pretty simple three-step process. Step 1, our default setting, our bias, is toward cooperation. Step 2, but we all have that potential for aggression. And step 3, and this part is so important, large-scale violence isn't just some raw instinct boiling over. It's usually a social product, something that gets triggered when our systems fail us, or worse, when they actually reward it.
So in the end, this whole debate isn't really just about defining our past, it's about shaping our future. Because if our behavior is just a reflection of the world around us, then the most important question isn't what is human nature, it's what kind of society are we going to choose to build to bring out the very best of it.